Rachel Vercoe is a 31-year-old living in Australia who was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2019 when she was in her 20s. She has two horses, Willow and Oakley, who were by her side during that journey. Her horses played a significant role in her continuing to live and express herself authentically, even in the face of uncertainty and great physical and emotional struggle. Through documenting the practice of liberty and their time in nature, Vercoe conveys the sense that Willow and Oakley were her partners along the journey of treatment and recovery and served as a space of refuge. She and her horses are connected by love and mystical union, and her horses allow her to encounter nature as a sacred space. Moreover, she uses her niche in the horse lover social media space to raise breast cancer awareness and educate on the realities of treatment. The Barbie horse aesthetic contributes to her and some of her followers' empowerment during their treatment journeys, while simultaneously allowing for playfulness that may serve as another kind of refuge from the toll that cancer and treatment takes on the mind and body. To give you a sense of the kinds of things that she shares about, these are screenshots from her Instagram highlighted stories. So, from left to right, she shared about how she learned about the diagnosis, like getting the phone call from her doctor, and then having to cut her hair and like the emotions associated with that. And then sharing very like honestly about her side effects and the toll that the treatment was like taking on her body. So like saying that she felt like death. And then more on her day-to-day experience, she said it's something that she wouldn't wish upon anyone in the world. And also talked about going through egg collection in order to try and preserve some sort of fertility for the future, the portacath insertion and how that works like biologically, and then on the top right, sharing her treatment regimen. And finally, on those same highlighted stories, there are these pictures of her and Willow in the ocean, of her and her loved ones at a country music festival, and also of her going fishing, as well as this last one of her on what looks to be a trail ride with Willow. And she interestingly chooses to put all of these photos and save them permanently on her page under the breast cancer topic. And so, what do we make of her choice to categorize these memories within her breast cancer journey? I think this is her being authentic, resisting the medicalization of and technocratic interventions being placed on her body in a way that might seem small but is also very meaningful. She's not rejecting medical treatment in any way, but she is reconfiguring what it means to heal as a whole person, what it means to remain true to herself, even though there's so much lab work, infusions, doctor's appointments, etc., being thrown at her. And her horses are a major part of that resistance, and her holding on to her identity because they connect her to the outdoors. Vercoe lives and lived before her diagnosis an extremely adventurous and like outdoorsy life. Beyond riding and working with her horses, she's a landscape slash nature photographer. She spearfishes, she goes on hikes. So nature is a sort of sacred space for her, and Willow and Oakley connect her to that. And in doing so, her horses help her secure a little bit of liberation on a spiritual level from the medicalization of her life and the stress that that likely creates. This is one really good example of that, and the song that's playing in the background of this is something that I'm going to discuss in just a minute.
The world away for a minute, pretend I don't live in it. Sunshine gonna wash my blues away. Had sweet love, but I lost it. She got too close, so I fought it. Now I'm lost in the world, trying to find me a better way. Wishing I was deep, deep in the water somewhere. Got the blue sky breeze and it don't seem fair. Only worry in the world is the tide gonna reach my chair.
The choice of the song and the lyrics are really telling of what she was feeling while actively undergoing treatment, which is when she posted the video. And it's this feeling of being lost in the world and wishing that she could have escape from it in the form of being knee deep in the water somewhere with all your worries gone. And it demonstrates that for her, being with her horse, being deeply connected to the sacredness of the natural world, has this grounding and steadying effect and is serving as a refuge from all the things in her life that were hard at that time. And her horses are what allow her to enter that space, and they also enhance the effect of being in nature more so than just being in nature without the horse. She also does Liberty, which strengthens their bond and creates a flow state that unites her, the horse, and the natural world.
Come join us for a Liberty play session in the arena with Willow and I, and I'm filming it all on my Pivo.
Willow and Rachel were mirroring each other's energy there. For example, in the discovery that if Rachel jumps, Willow does too, and it's like they're sharing one mind and sharing that energy. Berglund, in the Psychology Today article, reported on a study that showed that people who believe in or experience quote unquote oneness with other beings in the natural world, whether living or not, tend to have greater life satisfaction. And this spiritual connectedness that Willow and Vercoe experience while they're playing, the fact that they're united in what looks like a focused flow state, likely contributed to the intensity of her experiences with nature and becoming mystically united with nature and with her horses. Here's another example of Liberty.
I'm tired of running around looking for answers to questions that I already know. I could build me a castle of memories just to have somewhere to go.
So here we saw Vercoe pushing back against the language of breaking a horse and instead emphasizing not putting pressure on Oakley to be ready to be ridden on some kind of artificial timetable, and instead helping him learn at a pace that makes sense for him. And this is in The Spirit of Liberty, which we first learned about through Yvette Blokesh, which really reinforces the aspects of listening to the horse, allowing the horse to have an opinion, as well as the aspects of equal partnership in the relationship. And Liberty for Vercoe strengthens that spiritual horse-human connection and builds it on loved, shared energy and mystical union, trust, and equal partnership, which is also the case as we saw in Blokesh's videos. Willow have On the subject of partnership, Oakley and Willow have been along this entire cancer journey with Vercoe, and this is most exemplified when you look at these two posts of the then and now, as well as this next video of Oakley's transformation over the years. Vercoe has had him since he was born, and so quite literally, he's been growing and transforming alongside her during this entire process, this period of very drastic change in her life, and she raised him in Liberty, which only goes to strengthen their connection over time. Just to really emphasize the specialness of their bond, we have this post on the profoundness of the horse-human connection. And here we have this really beautiful picture. It looks like a few months after treatment because of the short hair, and she's reflecting on how loved by Willow that she feels. And I pulled a few comments that illustrated this. I'm sure there were more, but so many commenters talked about like the bonding they've experienced with a horse. It's something that words can't explain. They describe it as an unconditional love, having conversations without using words, like a kind of telepathy and mind connection, signifying mystical union, a soul connection, trust, the love and the horsey smell, and then as well as this idea that you can have a soulmate that is not a person. I also want to talk about the unicorn Barbie horse phenomenon and how Vercoe is using it not only to spread breast cancer awareness, but also for personal empowerment and as an outlet for play, which, as we talked about briefly in class, is already so rare for adults and yet desperately needed. Here are two photos from a fundraiser ride in 2019, and you'll see both of them, Rachel and Willow, all decked out in pink. And like, look how confident and happy and poised she looks. And even looking at the way the shot is framed on the left with the horse going up a slight hill, it gives it this air of like rising up, of moving onwards and upwards. And this already like pretty empowering essence merges with femininity because of the pink and the strength of the pose, which I think can be really empowering to her audience because femininity is not traditionally characterized as strong and capable and all of the other qualities that one has to have to be able to ride horses. But here, the linking of femininity and confidence and strength is something that we also saw with girls, as Jean Halley argued that horse crazy girls tend to be more focused on their strength and capabilities rather than on maybe other less productive things, and that even their fantasies tend to be empowering. And when they play, they imagine empowering scenarios like training an untrainable horse or going on an adventure in the woods. And so these images of horses, like the ones that Hallie talked about and like the ones here, seem to be naturally leading to very empowering narratives about girlhood and womanhood. And based on the comments that I'll show on the next slide, it sounds like this message is one that is also healing in addition to empowering for breast cancer survivors. We have commenters here saying that pink was something of value to them during their breast cancer journeys. So, like this first person says to that pink is like a shield and an expression of joy, using kind of the battle metaphor. Um, Also, this idea that pink is part of the healing and it's like the icing on the cake on top of this healing relationship. And then this last person says pretty simply that they became a pink person after having a double mastectomy, too. Finally, I want to talk about this unicorn horn. So, first of all, you can see some of this playfulness coming through in the caption that she wrote with the joke about, like, did you know Willow is actually unicorn and in her free time she eats marshmallows and drops fairy dust farts. But it gets kind of deeper when we think about what the unicorn represents. So, D'Angelo argued that unicorns have been constructed as this pure, innocent, whimsical, like kind of rare and unique creature, which reflects on Vercoe's journey too of being kind of a rarity or a unique person to be diagnosed with cancer so young. And it also reflects on her choice to embrace that uniqueness for good, to use it for advocacy, for education, for her own enjoyment and empowerment and healing. So clearly from these last three slides, we can see that there is something about Willow and the color pink being used in empowerment and playfulness that is healing, not necessarily for the physical illness that she's going through, but for the whole person in like a more holistic sense. And to relate this empowerment back to liberty, a trauma therapist by the name of Rebecca Bailey gathered some reflections on empowerment from trauma survivors, and one of them, named JC Dugard, reflected on how working with horses led her to change her understanding of empowerment to as not having power over something, but instead working side by side and maybe giving direction or prompting the horse. And that is what we saw Vercoe do and what Blokesh does when both of them practice liberty, and it makes sense that this specific definition of empowerment is what worked for Vercoe when she was undergoing treatment, right? Because you can't have domination over cancer, it's just too uncertain, and there's this letting go of trusting her horses enough to work side by side with her in partnership that jives with the particularities of going through a traumatic, very uncertain experience such as cancer. And to reiterate her advocacy or her education efforts, here is this photo of her riding Willow with the breast cancer awareness ribbon superimposed on top. And taking that along with the caption about breast cancer awareness among young people, we can see that this post perfectly encapsulates how Vercoe lived in a space of both and, meaning both the medical interventions to put her cancer into remission, to give her a chance at future fertility, and the healing powers of horses and nature and riding. This can be thought of as an example of a liminal space since she is straddling the medical and technocratic world alongside the sacred natural spheres and living in that space between the two. And of course, her horses help her occupy that liminal space. In conclusion, Vercoe's accounts contain candid reflections and documentation of her breast cancer journey and serve as a medium through which she can be an advocate and educate others. They show how her horses helped her balance the medical world and being one with the natural world. And finally, in her advocacy work, she used the Barbie horse image as an opportunity for empowerment and playfulness.